Hello and a very warm welcome to this special. We've got one finalist in this edition of the IPL in Gujarat Titans. We're one match away from finding out who the other finalist will be. So it's time now then to just sit back and look at the league stages and try to figure out who have been the players who have performed and who haven't performed. We'll in fact be doing another show where we talk about our best playing 11 of the IPL. But today is time for us to do the flop 11, the 11 that in fact disappointed all of us. There was a lot of expectations from these players in this playing 11. They came with reputation, they came with numbers behind them, stats that were in their favor behind them, but were unable to perform in this edition of the IPL. So let's get straight into it. Nick is going to help me figure this out. Both of us, in fact, did go through the list and we agreed on almost all of the playing 11. So let's get straight into it. Our first player then, we start with the openers. On the top spot, we've got to begin with Mumbai Indians captain Rohit Sharma. Nothing that Rohit Sharma really did in this edition of the IPL really helped the team. He did get 268 runs in 14 matches, but take a look at that average of 19, strike rate of 120.18. Just extremely disappointing given that he was in such good form in international cricket. But then as soon as the IPL began, we saw Rohit Sharma completely out of rhythm.
Absolutely, and that has been the surprising part, Maya. You know, Rohit Sharma, when he took over as full-time captain of India in November, if you remember, he started this, you know, he led the, in the power play, he changed the approach of the team. He went all out after the bowling in the first 6 overs, which was a new template for India. Correct. And everyone thought, I mean, he will replicate that for Mumbai Indians in the IPL also. But somehow it didn't happen. Also, so both the things didn't happen. You know, like the previous seasons where he did score some runs, correct, playing the role of an anchor, but scored at a very low strike rate. That also did not happen this year. Neither he played the role of an anchor, nor did he provide the cameos. Therefore, his average is less than 20. Correct. The strike rate is at an all-time low, and it is by far the worst season for Rohit Sharma, the batsman. So a very, very poor season. And then which resulted in the worst season for Mumbai Indians in their IPL history, finishing last, and also 2 seasons in a row, the greatest T20 franchise in the world, correct, not only in India, in the world, hasn't made it to the playoffs.
Yes. Also, as I was going through this list, I just realized this has also been a terrible season for some of the captains. In fact, we have 4 captains in this list of our flop 11. That's how bad the season's gone for some of the captains. So Rohit Sharma there, the captain of this flop 11. And, you know, it's no surprises, Nikhil, that now he's taken a break, rightfully so, just to get a clear understanding of what seems to be going wrong, just taking a step back and looking at how he can move from here on, because what we saw in this edition of the IPL was the worst that we've seen Rohit Sharma in the recent times. Okay, then we move on to who would partner Rohit Sharma at the top, who hasn't been able to get any runs, who has but Kane Williamson, another captain. Sunrisers Hyderabad just struggled throughout the tournament. I mean, if there was one opener who struggled throughout, Rohit Sharma at least got some starts. But with Kane Williamson, he struggled throughout except maybe one innings, and striking very low. At one point, his strike rate, I think just before the league stages ended, was 96, the worst strike rate overall in the tournament.
It ended with even lower.
It ended with 93, Nikhil.
I mean, absolutely shocking performance from Williamson. You know, for a batsman who's never been a T20 great, Maya, except for one season he had in the tournament when he scored 700 plus runs. But he's always been a consistent T20 player, and that's what you expect from him. You know, you expect him to score around 450 runs in a season at a strike rate of, you know, around 125, 130. But this season, you know, he just couldn't anchor. He couldn't play the role of the anchor. And if he had done so, a Sunrisers Hyderabad team punching above its weight with the likes of, you know, Rahul Tripathi, Markram, you know, Abhishek Sharma and the bowlers, they could have well been in the playoffs. But Williamson did not fire. You know, that strike rate cost the team. It put enormous pressure on the likes of Rahul Tripathi, who was absolutely brilliant for a top 3 batsman, to score even quicker. 93.5 is poor. It is very, very poor. So he didn't score the runs. Neither did he, accelerate at any stage. A very poor performance by Williamson.
That's right. So Kane Williamson there and struggled throughout. At no point did you feel like, for the longest time, we kept wondering why he was even opening the innings when he just couldn't score runs. Then he dropped himself down the order, but that didn't seem to help at all. So yes, Kane Williamson, an absolute and utter disappointment in this IPL. Okay, then we get to number 3, and this is interesting. We might have some of you tell us that's not okay, because Virat Kohli did come to form. He did score 250s in the tournament, and he looked good. In the last time he scored 73, but no. Virat Kohli and the expectations around him. Virat Kohli, the batsman Virat Kohli, the same batsman who scored 973 runs in one season of the IPL in 2016. We saw a pale shadow of that Virat Kohli in this edition of the IPL. 3 golden ducks, struggling throughout, finding new ways to get out. Nothing went out right for Virat Kohli this season.
Absolutely. That 73, yes, it was a fine innings, but we have to see the overall picture. And overall, Virat Kohli has been a disaster this season, man. Again, Virat Kohli, he also struggled in the previous 2 editions, struggled to score fast. His average strike rate in the last 2 seasons, Meya, was only 120.
Correct.
Which is, Kohli at his peak is 140. So for India in T20 internationals, he's always scoring at 140. But for RCB in the last 2 seasons, he was only scoring at 120. But this season, again, just like Rohit Sharma, the runs did not come. The runs did not come except for that one innings. 9 outright failures, and that is a standout stat. 9 outright failures of 15 innings, which means it's a failure percentage of 60%. That is very high. That is very, very high for a batsman of Virat Kohli's caliber. And then, because he was failing, he did not allow the likes of Faf du Plessis to play the aggressor game, which did cost the RCB. I mean, they are in the... They barely made it to the playoffs, courtesy.
And it's not because of Virat Kohli.
And it's not because of Virat Kohli. So Faf du Plessis hasn't been able to play his aggressor game like he played for CSK, also because of how Virat Kohli has fared in the tournament.
Correct.
So, Virat Kohli, 9 outright failures, 3 golden ducks you mentioned, strike rate 116, that is it, average not even 24. And also his middle over struggle continues. The 4th worst strike rate in the middle overs, 115. So, Virat Kohli still not, even when he scored that 50 and the last innings 20, he consumed too many deliveries.
Correct.
It was counterproductive.
That's right. Even in the last game, you were wondering, especially when you had Rajat Patidar striking at this rate that he was, you felt like Virat Kohli was too slow. Okay, so Virat Kohli at number 3 of that flop 11. Who would have thought when this tournament began that he would be in that list? But he definitely makes it to the list. Then we get to number 4 position. Now, number 4 is another captain, Mayank Agarwal, a full-time captain for Punjab Kings. 196 runs, 13 matches. Again, dropped down the order. First was opening, couldn't get any runs, didn't help. Even when he came down the order, and struggled throughout the tournament. And I wonder how much of this had to do with Mayank Agarwal, the captain, being under pressure. Mayank Agarwal having that enormous burden of captaincy, because that's when you're not really thinking about your own batting, but you're wondering what you do with the team. And somewhere I feel like that has played a huge role in Mayank Agarwal's performance in this edition.
You're absolutely right. Amongst all the captains who've been adversely affected, after being given the role, the leadership role, I think Mayank Agarwal has, been affected the most.
Yeah.
Because he was the Mr. Consistent, the unsung hero for Punjab Kings in the last 2 editions. Although KL Rahul scored more runs in those editions, but, Agarwal was the aggressor at the top of the order.
Correct.
In his partnerships, he used to dominate the scoring rate, and which allowed Rahul to build his innings and play the way he did, accelerate later. But this season, I just think it was a mistake. Agarwal, with all due respect, is not made for captaincy. It was more of a, reward for being a loyal servant to the team instead of choosing the right person. And that has adversely affected their fortunes because Agarwal did not even succeed in one encounter. Not even one match-winning knock in the tournament. And absolutely abysmal numbers for a batsman who's very talented.
And to think that at the last season, if KL Rahul was the aggressor for Punjab Kings, Mayank Agarwal played his role to the T. He scored a bucket full of runs, but he did not do it in this edition. So Mayank Agarwal at number 4. Then we move on to Venkatesh Iyer at number 5 again. What seems to have gone wrong with Venkatesh Iyer? This is a question that everybody is asking, given how well he batted in the last IPL. To see that he was one of the biggest reasons for Kolkata Knight Riders to make it to the finals of last season. You can't figure out what seems to have gone wrong. Either it's a mental thing, either it's the technique. Bowlers seem to have figured him out. Opposition knows what to do against him, but he's struggling in how. Strike rate of 104, who would have thought? And he didn't stop at the IPL, you know. After last season, it was also domestic tournament where he was unstoppable. But come IPL, just couldn't score runs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very difficult to fathom what has gone wrong with Venkatesh Iyer. Yeah. You know, he also did well for India batting at 6. You know, he was being billed as the next all-rounder with Hardik Pandya's form dipping. And now look how the fortunes have completely changed. I think what has happened, the only reason I can think of is that last year there was no burden on him. You know, who is Venkatesh Iyer? No one knew who is Venkatesh Iyer. You know, second highest scorer after Ruturaj Gaikwad in the UAE. Like this year, everyone knows Venkatesh Iyer, the all-rounder for KKR, the all-rounder for India, replacing Hardik Pandya. That pressure gets to the best of people. And I think it got to Venkatesh Iyer. And those numbers are shocking. They tried everything. Opening, number 5, 6, he failed. And he did not bowl much also. So Venkatesh Iyer, not only will he not play for India, he's not, I mean, he is in the team, but I don't see him finding a place in the 11.
Not with Hardik Pandya.
Not with Hardik Pandya.
And he was essentially Hardik Pandya's replacement when he was in the Indian team. So that was another question that one wanted to ask the selection committee, that why would you have Venkatesh Iyer in the side given his lack of form and the fact that Hardik Pandya is already there and doing the job.
And he was dropped by KKR from a few matches. I mean, imagine Venkatesh Iyer being dropped, the hero from last season.
And somebody who they retained from last season. Okay, then we move on from Venkatesh Iyer to KIERON Pollard, another big name. One of the greatest to have played for Mumbai Indians in so many situations where he's got them out, taken them to a winning situation. But KIERON Pollard unable to do it this time around. Again, Mumbai stuck with him for longer than they should have. You felt like maybe they needed to drop him earlier, but they stuck with him because it was the reputation that KIERON Pollard brought with him. But again, strike rate of 107, couldn't score runs. Forget about finishing matches. He wasn't being able to score runs at all. I mean, there's one thing of coming in and being able to finish matches if you're scoring runs, but he wasn't. He was completely out of rhythm with the bat and with the ball.
Absolutely. You know, 8 failures. 8 failures in 11 innings with the bat. The thing with Mumbai Indians, well, they made a mistake. They should have dropped KIERON Pollard midway into the tournament. I mean, maybe they still wouldn't have qualified, but because of Pollard, neither was he scoring, plus he was wasting deliveries in the lower order, which is almost a crime. And he was putting enormous pressure on the, batsmen before and after him, because he was wasting, Mumbai lost at least 3 matches because of Pollard's scoring rate in the death overs. 107.46 is the lowest for a number 4 to 7 batsman in the tournament. And this same Pollard had a strike rate of 200 in 19 and 20 when Mumbai Indians won in successive seasons. So how, we've seen, according to me, we have seen the last of KIERON Pollard for Mumbai Indians.
I'm in agreement with you. I don't see KIERON Pollard playing another game for Mumbai Indians, given he's not getting any younger. Next year, I don't see him playing any matches for them. Okay, let's move on then from KIERON Pollard to... Now, we had to get a wicket-keeper in, and we were wondering who has been the worst wicket-keeper, but has also been a keeper for a certain number of matches, not a keeper just for 2-3 matches. And, in case in point, Anuj Rawat, or for that matter, Sheldon Jackson, in and out. Matthew Wade was there throughout. And if you just saw wicket-keepers across, we thought Matthew Wade was the one who would have to be here in this list. Do you agree, Nikhil?
I agree. I think Matthew Wade, because, barring one match in which I think he scored 30 or something, the overall numbers are very poor. And, they kept giving him opportunities at the top of the order, but he kept failing. 149 runs, not even averaging 17. Strike rate only 116.4. This same Matthew Wade produced that maverick knock against Pakistan in the World T20 last year. Pakistan were favourites, but Australia reached the final. Failed in 6 of the 9 innings. So, for me, Matthew Wade is, the wicket-keeper choice in this flop 11.
Okay, so from Matthew Wade, we move on to another captain in this IPL who then said he didn't want to be the captain anymore. Chennai Super Kings, Ravindra Jadeja. Oh, how things have turned for him as well. Again, injured, out of the Indian team, out of favor with what seems like with the team management of Chennai Super Kings as well. And, you know, with Chennai Super Kings, which was surprising again, Nikhil, was that nothing was going right off the field as well for them. Again, very surprising given this was the team that always said we back our players, stability, we don't believe in chopping and changing. With Jadeja, you just felt like he was not treated well.
Absolutely. You know, I think Jadeja was the right choice because frankly, who else did they have as choice to succeed MS Dhoni? He was his understudy. They couldn't make Ruturaj Gaikwad. They needed an Indian player. There was no one else. After they let go of Faf du Plessis, who was a choice, the only choice was Ravindra Jadeja. So it was a natural choice, but I didn't think they expect, you know, the campaign to go so, you know, haywire after he became captain. His own personal performance, the finisher, no matches. You know, he couldn't bat. He couldn't lay ball to bat. I mean, forget finishing matches. And then in the middle overs, he's not picking wickets. Initially, he was going for runs. So Ravindra Jadeja, you know, was completely failing with the bat and ball. And it was, I mean, obviously directly had to do with the burden of captaincy, filling in MS Dhoni's shoes, the
which
greatest of all.
Which MS Dhoni said, in a post-match
yes.
presentation, he said that he was overthinking everything and that he was thinking too much about the team and not about his own batting, and that was affecting his own performance. But what I find surprising is that Mahendra Singh Dhoni, I know that he has all the power in Chennai Super Kings, but him, 2 days before the tournament begins, comes out and says Ravindra Jadeja would be the captain. I don't know whether this captaincy was almost thrust upon Ravindra Jadeja, or whether he would have wanted it, but did he get time to prepare for it? So there are all those questions as well, because it couldn't have been easy filling Mahendra Singh Dhoni's shoes as the captain of the second most successful franchise in the IPL. So yeah, nothing went right for Ravindra Jadeja as well. Now he's out of CSK, he's out of the Indian team, recovering from an injury. Things looking rather blue for him. Okay, then we move on to the next player in Pat Cummins. So much expected out of Pat Cummins, you know, one of the best in the world in this format. One of the best in the world overall, but look at that, 7 wickets in 5 matches, most expensive. I think just before he got injured, he was by far the most expensive bowler in the tournament.
Absolutely. You know, Pat Cummins, the greatest test bowler by far in the world currently, by far. And one of the greatest bowling averages in test cricket of all time. That's how good he is in red ball cricket, pink ball cricket. But you know, he also is a decent T20 bowler. Now, while we have seen another of his teammates, Josh Hazlewood, a test specialist, rise, and rise to the occasion, prove his critics wrong. That he's not only a test specialist. Pat Cummins somehow, very surprisingly, you know, could not, do it for KKR. I mean, see, 4th worst economy rate, 10.68. He played 5 matches only. In 4 of the 5 matches, his economy rate was more than 10. Wow. That is Pat Cummins. Yeah. So, you know, a very poor season of Pat Cummins. I think he needs sort of,
and again, he was dropped as well. He was dropped, another player who was dropped with Venkatesh Iyer. There was Varun Chakravarti who was dropped at the time when they made some 5 changes to the team. So also with Kolkata Knight Riders, the problem's been they just could never figure out their best playing 11, and they kept chopping and changing and trying to figure out who their players were going to be, but in the end it didn't work out. Pat Cummins being one of the reasons why their bowling wasn't doing well. And of course, you know, if Pat Cummins is in your side, you'd have a lot more expectations from him. He didn't deliver in this season. Okay, then we move on to Mohammed Siraj. Again, Mohammed Siraj is another player who doesn't find himself in the Indian T20 squad as well. Why? Because he has been disappointing in this IPL. 9 wickets in 14 matches, hasn't been able to pick wickets, and on top of that, has been expensive.
Absolutely. You know, what stands out, of course, he hasn't taken wicket. That can happen to the best of bowlers. But his economy rate in the death overs, 14.75. It's a worst by far, and it is shocking. 14.75 is his average economy rate in the death overs. So Siraj somehow, I was surprised because I expected a lot from Siraj. But Siraj this season wasn't there. He was not the threat. I mean, he's a very potent bowler. again, in all formats, and he's been brilliant for India since his debut in Australia.
Correct.
But you know, Siraj somehow could not find his mojo in this tournament, and you know, he'll find it difficult to come back in the Indian team with the number of fast bowlers doing well for India. It'll be difficult for Siraj. Very, very disappointing tournament for him.
And talking about fast bowlers, News 9 Sports is what you need to subscribe to, because we've just put a wonderful interview of Yash Dayal, one of Gujarat Titans left-arm pacers, and you know, who's actually been very impressive given that this is his debut, and he's picked up 10 wickets in 8 matches at a strike rate of 17, which is the best for Gujarat Titans among their bowlers. So that interview is on News 9 Sports, so you can go watch that as well. And then our 11 of this flop 11 is Varun Chakravarti. Second season blues, call it just batsmen being able to figure him out, but Varun Chakravarti just did not look like the mystery bowler we saw him last season.
Absolutely. You know, the two main reasons for KKR, you know, not reaching the playoffs, although they tried their best, they gave it all, was the, you know, the terrible performance by Venkatesh Iyer and Varun Chakravarti. The two players, they retained two of their heroes from the last side when they made the final. Varun Chakravarti was hailed as this mystery spinner. You know, he had almost become the #1 spinner for India, the #1 wrist spinner for India, ahead of Yuzvendra Chahal. Kuldeep Yadav was nowhere in the picture, but look at his numbers in this season. Only 6 wickets in 11 matches. Where are the wickets?
Yeah.
He could not pick up the wickets. Also, he was being tongued for runs. In a season where the two highest wicket takers are wrist spinners, he's being taken at 8.51, bowling strike rate of 39. He was dropped from the, he's nowhere on the India scene now, and he's also dropped from the KKR team.
And he already had fitness issues. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
something that he struggled with. So, you know, how the fortunes turn for players, it's fascinating. It's sometimes disappointing for these players, but we've seen this happen so often in Indian cricket and in IPL. So yes, that's our flop 11. And if we could just put those 11 names up on the screen for you. And what is ironic, Nikhil, is that this could be your best 11.
Yeah, I mean, on any given day, this team can beat any international 11. If all of them play to their potential, they can beat any best 11 of all time. That is how good this flop 11 is. Imagine that. Look at the players there.
Look at the pedigree. Look at the experience.
We've everything they have.
Look at the depth, even in the bowling, if they all bowl to their potential.
Yeah, I mean, we have two right-arm fast bowlers, a mystery leg spinner, left-arm orthodox, Pollard, one of the greatest of all time, VIRAT KOHLI, one of the greatest T20 batsmen of all time, Williamson, Venkatesh Iyer, Rohit Sharma, one of the greatest T20I batsmen of all time. You know, phenomenal team, and this is the flop 11 of this season.
Yeah, I mean, imagine it's an 11 with Rohit Sharma, Kane Williamson, Virat Kohli, Mayank Agarwal, and it is the team that has been, it's a team of flop players who haven't been able to perform in this tournament at all. And we're not even talking about, you know, 1 or 2 performances. Yes. They have just disappointed. They've been absolutely disappointing in this tournament. So there you have it. Do you agree with this 11 that we've got for you? Do you think that you would have made some changes? Would you have added somebody else in your flop 11? Do let us know on News 9 Sports, as well as do put in the comment section below if you agree with our 11. Well, that's it then from Nikhil and me. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.